An Italian Coast Guard rescues distressed boats filled with dozens of migrants.
38 people fell into the sea, including one child. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. orders DENR to speed up oil spill cleanup. Jobless Filipinos hit 2.37 million in January. Overnight strikes pummel key facilities in Ukraine. China warns the United States against suppression or risk conflict. And Pau Gasol gets emotional as Lakers retire his number 16 jersey. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has directed the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR, to hasten its cleanup operation on the oil spill within the coastal areas of Oriental Mindoro. To do this, the DENR says it will seek the health of the troops participating in the Balikatan exercises. More details from Paulo Ramos.
The Marcos administration expects to finish immediately the cleanup operation in the coastal areas of Oriental Mindoro affected by the oil spill from the sunken oil tanker MT Princess Empress. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says the oil spill cleanup should be finished within the next 4 months. In a meeting with DENR officials, the president was informed where the oil spill is coming from as the agency vowed to prevent the oil slick from reaching the ground. The chief executive is grateful for the offer of help from Japan and South Korea to control the damage of the oil spill to the environment. Meanwhile, the DENR is considering seeking help from military troops participating in the annual Balikatan exercises from the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the United States Armed Forces. Environment Secretary Antonia Loizaga says the oil spill has reached the Cuyo Island group while the slick continues to spread in Antique and Semirara Island. The oil spill from the sunken vessel is estimated to be between 35 to 50,000 liters daily. DENR is also coordinating with local government units, the owner of the vessel, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, to gather more funds for the Cash for Work program for affected residents. The Philippine Coast Guard had earlier admitted that 1 month is not enough to contain the oil spill in the province where 15,000 fisherfolk are affected while 9 towns are placed under a state of calamity. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Japanese Coast Guard will send oil control experts to help the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, in its oil spill response operations in Oriental Mindoro. According to the PCG, Japanese ambassador to the Philippines, Kazuhiko Koshigawa himself, said that Tokyo will deploy its disaster relief expert team to assist the Philippines in cleaning up the coastal oil slick. Aside from the manpower, the Japanese team will also bring its assets for the cleanup. After several attempts, the PCG installed on Wednesday the oil spill boom in the area where MT Princess Empress is suspected to have sunk. PCG says they have had a hard time placing the boom due to the strong current. Aside from the oil spill boom, the PCG also continues placing oil dispersants in the town of Nauhan. The oil spill has also affected the towns of Pola and the coastal areas of Pinamalayan and Bongabong in Oriental Mindoro, as well as the town of Kaluya in Antique. Meanwhile, Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista assured that an investigation is underway on the sinking of Amity Princess Empress, led by the Maritime Industry Authority or the Marines.
Tinitingnan din namin yung possibility of overloading, no?
Ng cargo niya.
Cargo. Kasi may laman yan na 800,000 liters.
Wow.
And doon sa
Crude
initial...
oil?
Actually, it's industrial fuel ang nakalagay. No? Meron bang mga pagkakamali yung other offices namin? No?
Anong office?
Pwedeng Marina and Philippine Coast Guard. No? Kasi bago maglayag yan, dapat merong clearance yan from
Coast Guard.
Although yung initial safety report that was submitted to me, no, ay napakalakas daw ng alon dun sa lugar na yun, no? Umaabot ng mga 4 meters.
The transportation chief says the oil tanker was new, having been constructed in 2020.
The Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, led today's nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. The focus of the exercise was the functional drill to see the capability of every government agency's response to a strong quake that could hit the country. Let's hear more from Kim Liana.
At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a siren rang signaling the start of the nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill at the headquarters of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, at Camp Aguinaldo. The agency's personnel simultaneously followed the procedure to duck, cover, and hold before going out of the building. Today's drill focused on the functional exercise, where an emergency communication system is immediately established for the rapid assessment of the damage of a possible 7.2 magnitude earthquake in Metro Manila.
The capability of the government agencies to coordinate during the actual disaster or earthquake in this case. Yun yung pinractice natin, pati yung communication capability natin. And nakita natin, sa ganito scenario pwede.
Science and Technology Secretary Renato Soledum says it is important to practice coordination of government agencies in times of disasters.
Napaka-importante yung bawat ahensya na alam ang kanilang role at sino ang gagawa at sino dapat na magsuporta. Yun po yung ginagawa ngayon at makita may gaps pa ba. Bakit po natin ginagawa yun? Kasi nagbabago din ang mga personnel ng mga ahensya at so mga players pa iba-iba. So dapat from time to time nire-review yung functional evaluation.
Before the exercise, the NDRRMC, the Bureau of Fire Protection, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines displayed their rescue equipment that can immediately use in case the big one hits. Aside from the equipment, Soledum adds that it is also important that every individual is ready and knows what to do.
Isipin nyo, pag dumating yung lindol, wala nang ibang makakatulong sa inyo. Kayo lang ang makaka-address kung ikaw ay buhay o patay. Kasi isarili mismo ang iyong protektahan. Kanya-kanya tayo during the earthquake event. That is why it is very important na lahat tayo ay sumasali sa earthquake drill. Pagligtas ka na, sakayan papasok ang mga responders kasi dapat buhay mo na yung magre-responde na marami. So it is important that even the responders should be.
In the study conducted by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, and Geosciences Australia in 2013, the casualties of the big one could reach 50,000 individuals in Metro Manila, Region 3 and Region 4A, while 10 to 13% of structures could vanish. Over at Quirino Grandstand, various government agencies also joined the simultaneous earthquake drill. A static display and rehearsal was held at Quirino Grandstand, where the Philippine Navy, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA, Philippine Coast Guard, Manila Police District, and the local government of Manila displayed their assets, including a chopper, truck, and an ambulance, among others. Tents were also set up for those in need of medical attention, complete with stretchers, rubber boats, generators, cutters, and other equipment. Manila Disaster Risk Reduction Office reminds the public not just to prepare, but also to know where the nearest evacuation center is, and most especially, not to panic. Kim Liana, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, On Point.
As the country conducted a nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill, a local firm today topped off its seismic technology to prepare against a strong quake. Let's hear more from Vin Pasqua.
Pemberton Center has inaugurated the topping off ceremony of its base isolation structure or seismic technology. The company is the first establishment in the country to use such machinery, as explained by its architect Kelvin Go. The base isolator is an earthquake-proof technology which was introduced to their group from Japan, where earthquakes are usually experienced.
This is the first high-rise building in the Philippines. And this building is the only certified by the Japanese Seismic Association that is certified by them.
The topping off ceremony was attended by former Public Works Secretary and now Senator Mark Villar. Meanwhile, the company's CEO, Dioseldo C., was happy that the inauguration of the project was done at the same time as the government's nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill. He emphasized the importance of the seismic technology like in Japan, not just for the business sector, but also for public infrastructure and heritage sites.
The first time we're hearing of this, and then we wanted to be something different, and we see that there's great potential in this base isolation technology. So we dug deeper, and then we consulted with a supply. We spoke deeper, discussed deeper. Then we met with the suppliers from Japan, and then they showed us how the technology worked, and then instantly we were convinced. So right away we wanted to have installed in our building. We had to scrap our design and then revise it to accommodate this new design, to accommodate this technology, because we believe this is very promising technology that we should also incorporate in the Philippines.
He encouraged the government to use the technology as an effective measure against earthquakes, especially that the Philippines is prone to quakes and volcanic eruptions in the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire. Vin Pasqua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The number of jobless Filipinos rose to 4.8% in January 2023. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, the percentage of unemployed individuals is equivalent to 2.37 million Filipinos. The jobless number in January is higher than the 4.3% in December and the 4.5% last October 2022. National statistician Dennis Mapa says joblessness in the first quarter of 2023 went up following the holiday season. But year-on-year, National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan says the number of jobless individuals declined to 4.8% in January 2023 compared to the 6.4% unemployment rate in January of 2022. Balisacan adds that the decline translates to 4.09 million more unemployed Filipinos during the period.
The country's gross international reserves, or GIR, decreased in February. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas says the GIR last February was at $99.3 billion, slightly lower than $100.7 billion in January. Last month's number is 6.1 times the country's short-term external debt based on the original maturity and 4.1 times based on the residual maturity. The GIR is important for the country's financial management because it is the basis for the state's liquidity compared to the economies of other countries.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has directed the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, to expand its coverage to provide more benefits to its members. According to the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, President Marcos met with PhilHealth officials, where PhilHealth Acting President and CEO Emmanuel Ledesma Jr. discussed short-term plans for the first half of 2023. In a statement, PCO says the plan includes expanding the coverage for hemodialysis patients from 90 sessions to 156 sessions to support 3 times a week for outpatient or 1-week coverage for the whole year. PhilHealth will also introduce a mobile app, a text messaging service, and the implementation implementation of new benefit packages. The PCO also says that included in the medium-term plan, which will start in 2024, is the carrying out of amnesty to government agencies and employers who missed their premium payments and amendments to the Universal Healthcare Law. Instead of revoking the accreditation of erring doctors and hospitals, the state health agency will penalize them. PhilHealth also plans to digitalize its services to the public and will construct its own building and facilities.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee has concluded its probe on the expired COVID-19 vaccines. The Department of Health, or DOH, reported to the committee that the number of wasted jabs could reach 60 million this year. Mian Corvera has the details.
COVID-19 vaccine wastage is expected to reach almost 60 million dosage this year. During a hearing of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, Health Officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergeres says, based on data, 15.3 million doses of vaccines remain in the warehouse of the Department of Health. But 6.74 million doses of the vaccine will expire before the end of the year. This is apart from the 13,000 vaccines that will end their shelf life in May, while a majority is set to expire in September. There are also 6.9 million doses under quarantine, but the DOH is waiting if their shelf life could be extended. Vergeres admits that the vaccination program has been sluggish since COVID-19 cases are on a downtrend and there are no reports of serious and severe infections.
We were hampered by the lifting of the state of calamity, wherein RA 11525 was considered not effective anymore or valid because of the state of calamity lifting. And because there is a provision in RA 11525 where pharmacists are allowed to vaccinate. And now because the state of calamity has been lifted, we cannot allow pharmacists to inject the COVID-19 vaccine. So we are still discussing this among our sectors.
However, the health official says they lay down measures to make vaccine accessible, especially in rural areas. To date, there are 6,000 to 10,000 individuals who avail of the vaccines daily, including booster shots.
The first 2 doses, our experts and science states that it is still effective to prevent from having severe and critical infection.
Vergeres says the donated vaccines that expire can be replaced, but the ones procured by the private sectors are not covered. The Ribbon Committee Chairman Senator Francis Tolentino suggests that DOH should intensify its information campaign to make the public aware that there is still an ongoing vaccination program to avoid vaccine wastage.
Sa information dissemination and then doon sa waste, dapat mag-combine na ang DOH and DNR. Alam nila yon, yung massive information campaign, yung rollout nila, isama na doon sa pagbabakuna ng bata. And if this can be tied up with other programs, siguro mas mainam, 4-piece.
During the hearing, Tolentino also questions the process of disposing of used and expired vaccines. He urged the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to do something because of the long-term negative effects of wasted vaccine on the environment.
Hindi ako convinced na pag na-pyrolysis, nasunog, ay safe na yon. Definitely, pag nahalo sa aquifer yon, sa mga ilog, kung nag-leak, may epekto yun kahit papano. As to the matter of safety, wala makakapagsabi na safe kasi infectious waste yun. So we're now treading the environmental landscape of this. Walang pag-aaral pa ang DNR. Walang pag-aaral yung private contractor, yung tigasunog. Walang pag-aaral din sa pagtatransport. Walang pag-aaral din sa pagbabaon kung ano yung long-term effects on the degradation of the environment. So all of this will have to be reassessed. Maging ang COA, hindi nila na-factor in yung negative effects sa kapaligiran.
Meanwhile, the Senate has concluded its hearing on the issue concerning vaccine wastage. Tolentino says the panel will prepare the committee report and its possible recommendation. One of the possible recommendations is the issuance of bond for the proper disposal of expired vaccines. He adds that government should consider including in its agreements that the provision that vaccine can be returned when expired. Mean Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Transportation, or DOTR, and the Office of Transport Security, or OTS, have vowed to be stricter with their personnel and would impose corrective actions to protect passengers from unscrupulous airport employees. The commitment was made by DOTR and OTS officials during a meeting called by House Speaker and Leyte Representative Martin Romualdez following the recent unfortunate incident of robbery involving a Thai national. Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista, OTS Administrator Undersecretary Mauranyada Aplasca, and General Manager Cesar Chiong of the Manila International Airport Authority, or MIAA, were all present at the meeting. The DOTR says selected personnel of the Philippine Coast Guard will be deployed as partners and companions of airport screening personnel at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. The agency will also require 1,200 OTS personnel working on 3 shifts to wear body cameras. To minimize interaction between OTS personnel and tourists or passengers, the agency is considering putting up additional e-gates. The transportation agencies will submit to Congress a proposal to prevent another robber from victimizing tourists. Romualdez reminded the officials that the embarrassing incident should not be repeated, as this would hamper foreign tourists from visiting the Philippines.
The 2 chambers of Congress have joined the bandwagon of modernizing and digitizing their processes with the launching of the Electronic Congress. Celine Dorado has the details.
The Senate and the House of Representatives launched today the Electronic Congress, or e-Congress. The 2 chambers are moving to digitize and hasten the process of releasing legislative information to the public. E-Congress is a digital legislative management system that intends to accelerate the job of the Legislative Secretariat and make legislative information more accessible to the public, such as proposed bills, congressional resolutions filed by lawmakers, and the proposals approved in the plenary by the House and the Senate. The formal launching of e-Congress was led by Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri and House Senior Deputy Speaker Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, who represented House Speaker Martin Romualdez, held at the Old Session Hall of the Senate at the National Museum building in Manila. The Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, between the 2 chambers was signed by House Secretary General Reginald Velasco and Senate Secretary General Renato Bantug Jr. In his message, Zubiri says the e-Congress will be the beginning of the 2 chambers' transition to paperless transactions.
It is great to have all the support from the e-Congress, or to support e-Congress, which is truly a landmark initiative that will launch us into the future of strengthened partnership between both chambers. If the pandemic taught us anything, my dear friends, it is that we can and must take advantage of digital technologies to make our respective legislative proceedings much easier and much more efficient. That meant, among other things, holding virtual and eventually hybrid sessions and hearings, authorizing the use of e-signatures for bills and committee reports, and beefing up our efforts to reflect the movement of our legislative documents to our website in real time.
Speaker Romualdez's message, read by GMA, says e-Congress is both chambers' answer to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s call for digitization, harmonization, and the merging of records and transactions of all government agencies.
To carry out this crucial role, it's imperative that both houses of Congress exercise constant collaboration, coordination, and sharing of information towards people-centered legislative governance. With the current developments in information and communications technology, we acknowledge the potential of e-governance in facilitating prompt and efficient delivery of public goods and services. An effective communication system amplifies the capacity of government organizations, ensures greater transparency, and deters corruption. It also serves as a mechanism for public information to promote citizen engagement in policymaking.
The leadership of both chambers agrees that e-Congress is the best way to counter fake news. From a separate web portal, the sites for House and Senate were merged under the website econgress.gov.ph. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, investigation finds a U.S. police unit routinely practice racism. Tens of thousands protest in Greece over the country's worst rail accident. And Russia and Ukraine exchange prisoners of war. These stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by Final Match Security and Investigation Agency. This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. A U.S. Justice Department investigation finds that police in the state of Kentucky have engaged in a pattern of abuse, racist abuse, for years. It finds officers routinely use excessive force and conducted illegal searches. The department launched a probe following a botched raid that killed a black medical technician and fueled nationwide protests. Attorney General Merrick Garland says the conduct of some of the officers is despicable.
Some have videotaped themselves throwing drinks at pedestrians from their cars, insulted people with disabilities, and called black people monkeys, animal, and boy. This conduct is unacceptable.
Garland says Louisville police practice an aggressive style of policing that targeted black people.
Georgian police fire water cannons and tear gas at thousands of protesters, ordering them to disperse. The protesters are rallying against a planned foreign agent law reminiscent of Russian legislation used to silence critics. Concern is growing that the mountainous Caucasus Republic is taking an authoritarian turn and being bent to the ruling party's will. Georgia aspires to join the European Union and NATO. Massive crowds gather in front of the parliament building in central Tbilisi. They hold EU and Georgian flags. They chant no to the Russian law. The protesters demand authorities to drop the bill on transparency of foreign funding. Critics say it mirrors a law used in Russia to force media and dissenting groups to shut down. Police say more than 70 demonstrators had been detained. 50 police officers were injured during the protests.
In Athens, Greece, protesters demonstrating outside Parliament Wednesday over the country's worst rail disaster threw firebombs. They are calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister. Police responded by firing tear gas to disperse the unruly crowd. Nationwide, more than 65,000 people are protesting. The largest demonstration took place in Athens, where more than 40,000 people flooded the streets. They waved banners that read, "It's not an accident, it's a crime." The collision between a freight train and a passenger train just over a week ago claimed 57 lives. 14 others remain in hospital. Outside Parliament, dozens of masked, black-clad youths hurled Molotov cocktails and stones at riot police. Demonstrators also torched a van a few blocks away. Greek government workers, doctors, teachers, bus drivers, and rail crew members have also staged a 24-hour strike.
In Sri Lanka, police forces and anti-government protesters clash in the bankrupt capital, Colombo. Authorities used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the demonstrators. Local reports say Inter-University Students' Federation urged the public to rally against the government's handling of the economic crisis. They also claim President Ranil Wickremesinghe's policies allow for excessive and disproportionate detentions. The group also demanded the release of their union leaders. Sri Lanka is facing a multitude of crises, including food insecurity, threatened livelihoods, and increasing protection concerns.
Italy's Coast Guard rescues more than 3 dozen migrants whose boats ran into trouble off the island of Lampedusa. According to the Coast Guard, the migrants were in 2 small boats that ran into distress Wednesday, about 16 kilometers off the Italian island. Media reports say the boats had been spotted by a European air patrol. The vessels were apparently overloaded. During the rescue operations, 38 migrants fell into the sea, including 1 child. There were no casualties. The rescue comes 10 days after at least 72 migrants died when their boat sank 150 meters off the southern Italian coast.
The UK government's asylum plan has faced huge battles in Parliament and the courts. The proposals also threw up a political line and divided EU ministers.
I talked to the Minister of Interior, Suella Braverman, 2 days ago. She informed me about the proposal. My immediate reaction is I question whether this is in line with international obligations. She promised me it is, so let's hope she's right, but we have to examine it a little bit further.
Austrian Interior Minister Gerhard Corner underscores the pressure in Europe increases in terms of illegal migration and asylum abuse. French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin acknowledges Britain is a sovereign country that makes its own decisions. Yet he says France and Britain must discuss the asylum plan again on Friday. He asserts they must find a constructive way to ensure there are no negative consequences.
Russia's Wagner paramilitary chief Prigozhin claims to have control east of Donbas. In his audio message, he says that his group has the influence over the east of the Bakhmukta River. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, validates the chief's declaration. Sources say Donbas's Artyomovsk is a major stronghold and logistic hub for Kyiv's Donetsk People's Republic. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin suggests that the fall of Artyomovsk won't give the Russians any change to the war's tide.
Mayor Vitaly Klitschko says Kyiv was hit by overnight strikes from Russian forces. According to President Volodymyr Zelensky, Russia fired 81 missiles to intimidate Ukrainians. Sources say 2 people were injured and 15% of households were without power. The strike also pummeled key facilities in Ukraine and disrupted water supplies for millions of people. Meanwhile, Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov admits the latest strike is a retaliation to the March to terrorist actions by the Kyiv regime in the Bryansk region. Konashenkov says Russia used high-precision long-range weapons to hit key elements of Ukraine's military infrastructure and factories.
During a visit to Kyiv, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres underscores the need to extend the deal, which has allowed the resumption of grain exports from war-torn Ukraine.
I want to underscore the critical importance of the rollover of the Black Sea Grain Initiative on 18 March and of working to create the conditions to enable the greatest possible use of export infrastructures through the Black Sea in line with the objectives of the initiative.
More than 14 million tons of grain have been exported from Ukraine under the Black Sea deal with Russia. The deal eased global food prices. The Black Sea Grain Initiative, or BSGI, says it has reduced world food prices for 7 straight months. The BSGI was due to run out on November 19, but was extended for another 120 days.
Russian and Ukrainian authorities confirmed a new prisoner exchange. The latest swap included 90 servicemen held captive by Ukraine, while Russia returned 130 Kyiv defenders. RT correspondent Sofia Nunes reports.
Russia and Ukraine have swapped 220 prisoners in one of the largest exchanges of the year-long conflict. On Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry announced that it had secured the release of 90 of the servicemen who were in mortal danger while in captivity. And now those troops have been brought to Moscow for medical and psychological assistance. Meanwhile, the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine wrote on Telegram that 130 Ukrainian troops were freed, including 4 service women. The latest POW swap took place on the eve of International Women's Day and is no doubt the best gift for mothers, daughters, wives and sisters of the released soldiers on both sides.
I'm finally home. I'm so happy, and my family is overjoyed.
There's nothing better than the feeling that you have come back home. I called my family to let them know. My mother was in tears.
I'm unable to express what I'm feeling right now. I'm shaking inside. I simply cannot describe this feeling. We were just gathered up one day and told that we are coming home. We were shocked. I told my family. My mom cried. My daughter and wife were incredibly happy. I am so grateful to the Russian government that we were not forgotten.
So far, over 900 Russian soldiers have been freed in prisoner exchanges. That's based on the information released by the Russian Ministry of Defense.
Media reports that the German armed forces, or Bundeswehr, are struggling to fulfill NATO commitments. NATO dictates a Bundeswehr must deploy at least 44 of its Leopard tanks for the military bloc. However, sources say the Bundeswehr 393rd Tank Battalion has about 20 tanks prepared. The military unit's Very High Readiness Joint Task Force, or VJTF, is NATO's 8,000 special forces against an emerging crisis. NATO dictates that the VJTF will be the vanguards if they were to be attacked. Meanwhile, the German military says their mandatory tank maintenance is extended from 12 to 24 months to comply with the quota.
Up next, Iran's leader calls girls poisoning an unforgivable crime. Thousands mark International Women's Day in Mexico. And U.S. President Biden wants 25% tax on billionaires. Please stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return with more global news.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka naming tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang angking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Tumataas lagi yan eh.
Hindi talaga sumasapat sa budget.
Usaping sikmura at bulsa.
Nasa crisis na tayo in a sense na hindi na affordable talaga ang ating pagkain.
Ma-achieve pa ba ng Pilipinas yung food security? Kaya ba ito? Mag-reality check tayo.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Iran's supreme leader said the poisoning of schoolgirls is an unforgivable crime. The perpetrators of the said crime should be punished by death, according to Supreme Leader Ali Hosseini Khamenei. The poisonings began in November in the city of Qam, where over 1,000 girls have gotten ill. Authorities have accused the Islamic Republic's enemies of using the attacks to undermine the clerical establishment. But suspicions have fallen on hardline groups operating as self-declared guardians of their interpretation of Islam.
2 people have died in a shootout during a robbery at the international airport in Santiago, Chile on Wednesday. The victims have been identified as an airport worker and one of the robbers. Officials say about a dozen armed bandits struck as workers transferred more than $32 million in cash into an armored car. The money had arrived on a plane from Miami, Florida. An official in charge of the investigation says the robbers entered the airport early Wednesday morning in 3 vehicles, broke through a gate, and headed for the cargo area. They got into a shootout with security officials, leaving an airport employee and one of the intruders dead. The robbers fled and set fire to 2 of their vehicles on a nearby highway. A manhunt is underway.
Dozens of women march in Lima defying a ban in the neighborhood of Miraflores. They are marking International Women's Day, demanding the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. Protesters, some of whom come from the southern region of Puno, say Boluarte does not represent them as a woman, a ruler, or a Peruvian. Boluarte tries to address their concerns, saying she upholds the well-being of all Peruvian women. The president had a meeting with female authorities and representatives of social organizations and military institutions on the occasion of International Women's Day.
In Mexico, amid strong police presence, thousands of women march on the streets marking International Women's Day. Marchers say they are tired of going out every day to work, to school, and receiving all sorts of harassment. The participants say they are tired of being belittled just because they are women. In recent years, the Women's Day protest in Mexico City has drawn thousands of participants to the march, sometimes with violence breaking out. In 2021, police fired rubber bullets and tear gas as campaigners clashed with officers.
During the trial of 6 people accused of murdering Italy's ambassador to DR Congo in 2021, prosecutors request the death penalty. The indictment hearing took place in the capital, Kinshasa. Italy's former ambassador to the DR, Luca Attanasio, was among 3 people killed on February 22, 2021. It was when a UN convoy was ambushed in the country's troubled east. According to the United Nations, the Central African country has observed a de facto moratorium on capital punishment since 2003. Courts, however, continue to hand down death sentences.
President Joe Biden is proposing a series of new tax increases on billionaires. Rich investors and corporations are also included in his latest proposal to how Congress should prioritize taxes and spending. Biden's budget request calls for 25% minimum tax and will raise income levies on businesses and wealthy Americans. However, the proposal has little chance of passing Congress, particularly now that Republicans control the House of Representatives. But the White House's proposal foreshadows the Democrats' strategy ahead over debt ceiling negotiations and government spending later this year. The Biden proposal would also require investors making at least $1 million to pay a 39.6% tax, much higher than the existing 20% rate.
In Northern Europe, some preschools are moving their education to open spaces. At 2 forest kindergartens in Sweden and Denmark, educators insist that the children are finding the change of scenery to be a breath of fresh air. A preschool teacher says children are more curious. They ask more questions about nature. Teachers also observe that children tend to experiment more with nature and become keener on doing things by themselves.
And it's very good just to be outside. They're more healthy, so when they're not as sick as other preschools maybe.
Denmark has launched a project to store carbon dioxide beneath the North Sea. It will be the first country to bury the greenhouse gas imported from other countries. The gas is being injected into an old oil field some 1,800 meters underwater. It is expected to store up to 8 million tons of CO2 by 2030. Gas from other countries will be captured at the source. It will then be liquefied and transported by ship to Denmark. Eventually, pipelines could be built to transport it. The technology is not without risks. Experts warn potential leaks could have severe consequences. The cost of the project has not been made public. Coming right up, Russia's wealthy gets richer amid sanctions. New mega lab makes its own weather to test homes of the future. And LA Lakers retires Pau Gasol's jersey. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns.
for Business with Cesar Vallejos.
Hi guys, it's me, Jameson Blake.
O, diba? Di mo kalahin, di ka pa.
And this Saturday, we'll be cooking Kapampangan dishes, syempre from my hometown, Pampanga, and I'm sure, manya-manya. This Saturday, 11 a.m. sa Lutong Daza sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Itong bisita to, galing sa traffic and everything.
Please welcome Miss Love.
Bitawan mo siya! Ano ba atraso sa'yo? Ikaw walang atraso! Pero yung babae may utang kasi sa akin yan ay magbayad eh!
Wow! 100? Wow! Ano po ang reason kung bakit umalis ka sa dati mong network? Sasabihin ko na! Ito kasi yun!
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Bloomberg's Billionaire Index reports Russian affluents raised their net worth by $10.4 billion. The jump started in January despite Western sanctions imposed on Russian businessmen. Bloomberg's index ranks top businessmen who own companies connected to natural resources and metallurgy. Ranking first is Vladimir Potanin of Norilsk Nickel with a $28.5 billion fortune. Leonid Michelson of Novatech is second with a net worth of $25.1 billion. And third is Vladimir Lisin of NLMK Steel Company with $20.8 billion.
Medical robots stun attendees at the Mobile World Congress. The device is able to measure 6 biometrics, including heart rate, blood oxygen level, and blood pressure. It also has a digital stethoscope and can use AI to diagnose medical problems and provide suggested treatments.
A new mega lab is making its own weather to test homes of the future. In London, United Kingdom, Ryan Florentino tells us more.
The UK cold snap is expected to worsen for many, with more snow predicted across large parts, bringing the threat of power cuts and travel delays. The heaviest snowfall is expected in northern and central England, where up to 40 centimetres or 15 inches could hit an area stretching from Durham down to Stoke-on-Trent. In spite of this, a new facility in the north of England, Energy House Labs, allows scientists to replicate weather conditions in order to test the energy efficiency of homes built inside a huge lab. Rain, wind, sunshine, and snow can be recreated in temperatures ranging from -20 to +40 degrees Celsius. Let's have a listen to Professor Will Swan, Director of Energy House Labs.
When you try and understand, how a house is energy efficient, you normally have to wait for the weather. So here we bring the weather to the research problem. We can compress a 2-year experiment into sometimes a matter of weeks.
To ensure this works in real-world conditions, volunteers are actually going to live here for days at a time. The hope is that Energy House 2.0, which recently opened at Salford University, can help builders and scientists find the best way to save energy in a time of high prices and climate consciousness. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Ryan Florentino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Los Angeles Lakers retire Spanish legend Pau Gasol's jersey number. The ceremony was held at halftime of the Lakers against Memphis Grizzlies match in the Crypto.com arena. Gasol's number 16 jersey was placed beside Kobe Bryant's number 24 jersey. Early in his career, the Spanish basketball star became Atlanta Hawks' overall number 3 pick in 2001. Between 2007 and 2008, the Lakers obtained Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies. During the ceremony, Gasol became emotional. Gasol played 6 seasons with the Lakers and Bryant, winning championships from 2009 to 2010.
Keanu Reeves is known for defeating villains in action movies, including The Matrix and John Wick. Today, his name is associated with killing fungus. German scientists have named newly discovered compounds that kill harmful fungi in plants and humans. In honor of Reeves' combat skills, they named the antimicrobials Keanumycins. Reeves said the scientists should have called the anti-fungi a John Wick. He also thanked the German team for recognizing his efforts.
Arnold Schwarzenegger posted a 12-minute video on YouTube addressing the rise in global hate and anti-Semitism. In the video, he warns those with discriminatory beliefs will be regretful in the end. The actor uses his Nazi soldier father as part of his analogy. He quotes that he is a man riddled with guilt who fell for a loser ideology. Schwarzenegger further emphasizes that the mistakes from the Holocaust should not be repeated. The former California governor recently visited the Auschwitz concentration camp. U.S. data shows anti-Semitic incidents have risen in recent years.
A tiny Welsh island in the United Kingdom has earned worldwide recognition for its stargazing sky. In Edinburgh, United Kingdom, Hilary Mendoza reports.
Night falls over Eunice Anley. The remote Welsh island sky turns impossibly black. Planets rise and shooting stars streak overhead, while the northern lights send flares of green and red across the sea. The rugged outcrop has become Europe's first dark sky sanctuary, one of just 17 places worldwide to achieve international recognition for their ultra-low light pollution and peerless stargazing. The island is 2 miles off the Welsh coast, and a mountain blocks glares from the mainland, so the only artificial light is the faint glow of Dublin across the Irish Sea. Caroline Jones, the administrator for the Barty Island Trust, has gained many emails from eager stargazers who want to visit the site and has given her many positive feedbacks.
We've had fantastic positive response to the news when it went out. Our social media channels, they've gone crazy. People just want to know more, want to know where we are. It's put essentially on the map.
The island has just 2 permanent residents. Mary Hughes, 30, and her partner, Amarin Owen, 36, have spent 4 years studying on Anley, also known in English as Barty, as its resident warden.
Having the recognition by the Dark Sky Association that Enlli is a dark sky sanctuary was fantastic news. It'd taken many years of work by many of us on the island, and it's a privilege to get the designation and to know that we're protecting something really important and really fragile for the future.
Around 4 hours from Cardiff, people on the nearby Lynn Peninsula in northwest Wales have long known their skies are remarkable. Now they have the chance to tell the world. Reporting from Edinburgh, United Kingdom, I'm Hilary Mendoza from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
That was beautiful. To help you get through the week, here's a quote from American professional golfer Arnold Palmer. Success in this game depends less on strength of body than strength of mind and character.
And of course, that's not just with golf, right? I think with life as well.
Exactly. I think it holds true in the many different situations
Oh,
that we
yes.
are in every single day.
And you know what means for me? A person even becomes more beautiful if his character and his brain, his mind is strong as well. Right?
Exactly. Character is very, very important to hold on to your character.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.